Hi, everyone. I am Kelly Gartner, and I'm a tutor in Houston, Texas, and I'm so excited to welcome you to our training tonight. Last night, we got a lot of good information about how to help kids develop their phonological awareness skills, and tonight you're going to learn even more to help you with your own children or your students. A little bit about me. I left the classroom after about 20 years in 2021, and I decided that I wanted to tutor kids in reading, and I was looking for an evidence-based program. And I found out about brain-friendly reading, took the 30-hour asynchronous training in, I think it was September of 2021, and I just completed my second year as a full-time brain-friendly reading tutor. That's how much I love this program. So I want to introduce you to our presenter tonight. Kristen Dwyer is the co-author of the Brain Friendly Reading Program, and she is the founder and executive director of We Shall Read, which is a literacy nonprofit. And she's going to share with us tonight how to support children in building letter-sound connections using various brain-friendly reading activities and strategies. So thanks, Kristen. I can't wait to learn from you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kelly, for that introduction. All right. So day 2 of our training, building letter sound connections using brain-friendly reading activities. And we're going to focus tonight with the first chart and games that we can use with the first chart, but really we can do it with any chart. What we're really looking at is about 5% of the children being able to read proficiently. They read and spell effortlessly as if they were never taught. Another 30% may be able to read well, and their spelling and their writing usually improves when they get a structured literacy program in their tier 1. That means in their classrooms, they are taught using a structured literacy program. But these children, typically people think they don't have any problem reading and writing. Then we have another group of children that has been around 40, 45, 50% of children who struggle to read and spell well and often write well. In some districts, that's many more children, and in some schools, it's much less. But as a nation, it looks to be around that percentage. That's a lot of kids who aren't really reading and spelling well. These are the ones who really require a structured literacy approach. And that means approach like the brain-friendly reading using instructional strategies that you're going to learn tonight. And then we have a bottom like 10 to 20% of children who really have neurological differences. That means they have a brain-based learning difficulty like dyslexia, could be something else as well, that impacts their ability to be able to read and spell well. They absolutely require the kind of training that you are receiving tonight. Now, if you're wondering, why is it that we don't just have 20% of the children who are struggling because they have learning differences and the other 80% are all reading proficiently? Go listen to the Sold a Story podcast by Emily Hanford, and you'll understand why our country and other countries are struggling with this huge learning gap. Last night, we talked about the Scarborough's rope. That is somebody who did research about 20 years ago and really looked at all the different skills that are necessary for a child to become a skilled reader, which means that they can read in a way that is accurate, they read with speed, and they read with intonation or the expression that is appropriate to the text, and they're able to comprehend what they've read. Decoding is only one piece of it, but that piece has to be in place for children to be able to read and spell well and to comprehend. Last night, we talked about phonological skills, and tonight we're going to focus on those letter sound connections. And what that means is that when the brain sees a letter like X, the child knows that X says X. It has the correct sound quickly and automatically. When the brain sees P and H together, the brain knows that that letter combination says F, and the child doesn't have to think about it. It's automatic. Automaticity, which is means automatic, is the goal that we're looking for quick and accurate recall. And to read and spell well, these foundational skills must be developed. Often in struggling readers, they're missing these skills. And once they have those skills combined with some syllable work and morphology, they begin to explode in their reading and the writing and spelling. Where he concluded that letter sound connections are so important and absolutely essential to the child in learning how to read. The child must be able to look at the letters and know what the sounds are automatically. And that when the child has an automatic and accurate recall, that quick and accurate recall, then the brain is able to look at those letters, take the sounds, blend them together, and know that that sequence of sound means something. So it attaches those letter sound combinations to the meaning that they make, because the goal of reading is meaning making. We want to be able to look at a word, read the word, and then have a picture in our mind of what it is that we're reading. So once the children have those letter sound correspondences, they're able to begin to crack the code themselves. So brain-friendly reading is a systematic phonics approach, and phonics is a way of teaching reading where the child matches the sounds to the letters. And BFR trains the brain to automatically know the sounds that letters make. And it happens in two ways. One is for blending or for reading, and the other one is for breaking words apart or for spelling. So this decoding and encoding are really two sides of the same coin. The brain has to be trained that when it sees the three letters M-A-T, that it very quickly assigns the sounds at, and is able to blend those together and make meaning out of it, and know that a mat might be a placemat, it might be a mat on the floor, that mat has different meanings, but the child can see in their mind what their representation of mat means. On the other end, when the child wants to be able to spell that word mat, they have to be able to hear the word mat and break mat into its individual sounds, at, and then know what letter corresponds to each of those sounds. This is often a stumbling block for older children who seem to be reading okay, but their spelling is poor. Those children often have memorized a bank of words, and they don't know how to break words into syllables and syllables into sounds. And even if they did know how to do that auditorily, they might not know what letters or letter combinations can go with each of those sounds. So tonight we're going to be talking about that sound symbol connection. The ear training that we did yesterday that is primarily done with young children can be done while you're doing the activities that I'm going to be teaching you today. They can be taught at the same time. So how can you bring the theory to life and help children learn letter sound correspondences? Let's look at several strategies from the Brain Friendly Reading program. Number one is chart tapping. That is the magic secret sauce of the Brain Friendly Reading program in the way that we do it. Other programs tap charts, but they do it a bit differently. We're also going to talk about sound dictation, and it's the same sound dictation that gets taught in Orton Gillingham trainings. And we're going to talk about the games that you can play with letters and sounds. And this is the other piece that's very helpful, because often children who need 50 or 100 or 150 or even 200 repetitions need some variety in their instruction in order to maintain interest. We have many different charts in the Brain Friendly Reading program. Often programs have a first chart that you see on the far left that people tend to think of as the alphabet chart. On our first chart, we have some extended skills as well that often show up in beginning readers. Think of those leveled readers in classrooms. The second chart is for older classrooms. When I was working with a 6th grade classroom in Detroit, the people were looking at the first chart and thinking, there's no way more 6th graders are having that chart. So we devised a second chart that had just the vowel sounds. Not many of the children knew the vowel sounds, plus some of the trickier bits from the first chart. We have a blends chart and a teens chart, as well as a syllables chart for us to practice going between open and closed sounds, and also to study the final stable syllables, as well as a short vowel chart, and the kindergarten chart that we've recently released is not on here as well. Our chart tapping process, often people get stuck with one and two. They do a call and response with the chart. And then in step two, they're meant to tap it all together. That's fine. If that's all people do with the chart, that's perfectly fine. As we've worked in classrooms, we've seen that some children in some classrooms are ready to progress to increasingly more difficult skills with their charts. So one of the things that they can do after they're really confident tapping the chart all together from top to bottom is they can tap the chart out of order. They could tap the chart and just say the sounds only, or say the sounds only out of order. Children love to take that chart and expand the level of difficulty that they're working at. It's something familiar, but we're adding a slight change. And that keeps the brain's interest. That's a brain learning technique to do something familiar, but to increase the difficulty or provide an extension or a piece of variety in some way that tells the brain, hey, something new is happening here. Wake up, let's pay attention. And the kids love the challenge. We also have charts that have no pictures on them. So once you remove the pictures, then the children begin to practice those sounds in order and out of order. And that really moves them towards automaticity. Okay, so the first chart is the one that we're going to focus on today. We're not going to spend the whole time learning how to tap the chart tonight. What I want to do is point you toward the Brain Friendly Reading YouTube channel. On the Brain Friendly Reading YouTube channel, you'll find all of the charts, all the videos for the charts, where they're tapped call and response, which means I say it and then you say it, and where they're tapped all together. If you're working with children and you don't think you know all your sounds correctly, just play the video for the children and let the children work alongside the video. This is the first brain-friendly reading chart. Let me show you how you tap the chart. You touch the letter, touch the picture, and then touch the letter again. We say the letter name, we say the name of the picture, and then we say the sound that the letter makes. It looks like this. A, apple, A.
A, apple, A.
B, bat, B.
B, bat, B.
C, cat, K.
C, cat.
C-I, C-E, C-Y, city, S.
C-I, C-E, C-Y, city, S.
D, duck, D.
D, duck, D.
E, edge, E.
E, edge, E.
F, fish,
F, fish.
G, goat, G.
G, goat, G.
G-I, G-E, G-Y, giraffe, J.
G-I, G-E, G-Y, giraffe, J.
H, hat,
H, hat.
I, itch, I.
I, itch, I.
J, jar, J.
J, jar, J.
K, kite.
K, kite.
L, lion, ul.
L, lion, ul.
M, map, M.
Map,
N, net, N.
N, net,
O, octopus, ah. Okay, so that is chart tapping call and response. That's where you begin with the child. They don't have to know anything. 3-year-olds have learned how to chart tap call and response from top to bottom. Over time, children do it just by themselves. A, apple, A. B, bat, B. They increase their speed and their accuracy.
Y, city, D, duck, duck. E, edge, F, fish, G, go, go.
A, apple, A. B, bat, B. C, cat, C-I, C-E, C-Y, city, S. D, duck, duck. E, edge, F, fish, G, go, go. G-I-G-E-G-Y, giraffe, G.
And then they can go from the bottom to the top and on that progress monitoring chart. you can see the different ways that the child can progress in their skills. Some move faster, some move slower. That's okay. In a classroom, you head right down the middle and hopefully provide the children who need extra chart tapping time opportunities to work to do that in a small group or with a para or outside of the classroom at home with mom working with them with the video. So this provides a way for children to be able to practice those letter sound connections. And at the same time, it builds phonemic awareness. After we tap the charts with children in our lesson sequence, we're going to dictate sounds to children that help them practice writing the letters that go with the different sounds. This process looks like this. You say the letter sound, the child repeats the letter sound, and then the child writes the letter or letters that go with that sound. The child can write those letters on a dry erase board, on a chalkboard, on an easel, in a salt tray, on paper. So we've been tapping our chart, and now I'm going to give you a sound, and you're going to write the letter that goes with it. If I say, you'll write the letter M, and you can just write the lowercase. All right, are you ready? I'm going to hide my chart. Your first letter is B. Can you say the sound back to me?
B.
And then write B, and say B while you write it. B. Your next one is L. Say it back to me. L. Oh, and how about S? S. S. Yes, I can see you thinking. Good job. How about Ah? Can you say the sound back to me?
Ah.
Good. How about And here's another one. X. X. Yeah, you did it. Z.
Z.
Z. Yes, that's one. Do you know the other Z? You did know it, didn't you? All right, how about this one? J. Can you say the sound back to me?
J.
There's J, jar, J. There's two more. Would you like a clue? How about bridge? Bridge. Does that help? It's right here. Let's tap it. I'll go first.
Oh,
D, G, E, bridge, J. Tap it 3 times for me. Get your finger out and tap it. D, G, E. Here, take your finger right here. D, G, E, bridge, J. Do it again. D, G, E, bridge, J. One more time. D, G, E, bridge, J. Great. Would you like to write that now? D, and you can say the letters. D, G, E, bridge, J.
J.
And do it one more time. You can write it right here. D,
G, E, J.
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 And you can even underline it and say J.
J.
You want to do that one more time? Do you have space?
E,
D,
G, E, J.
Oh, I love it in cursive. Can you write it in cursive right here? Let me see that pretty cursive.
Go up, down,
D,
and then do that.
G. Oh, I see that.
And then you curve like that, and then it's like a little, like a normal E, and then.
How does that feel to write in cursive?
It's pretty fun to write in cursive.
Does it?
It's really fancy.
It does look fancy, doesn't it? It feels good too, doesn't it? Great job. I'm gonna say the sound, and you write the letters that spell the sound. Are you ready? Okay. The first sound is ch.
Okay, the next sound is
TH.
yep. Okay.
Okay, so that's what sound dictation is. It's very straightforward. You can dictate any sounds from a chart the child has tapped. That's the rule. And sometimes the trickier ones are like, can you tell me the 3 things that say k? And the child has to think, what says k? And they go, C says k. And they might remember that K says, but they've forgotten that CK at the bottom of their chart also says k. So in the more extended training program, we teach you what to do when you run into difficulties, because that's really the tricky part. When children can do everything you ask them to do, it's easy to teach this work. The part that gets a little tricky is, what do you do when the child is stumped? How do you help them? You want to know, don't you? Okay, I'll tell you. You give them on the chart the key picture. So for CK, that picture is sock. So I would say to the child, sock. It's a mnemonic device that helps them recall that square. For my severely dyslexic children, they go sock and they tap the whole square, CK, sock, and then they'll go, okay, it's CK, and they write it. So the picture is there for the child to be able to hear the sound, but it also serves as a way for them to recall that. If they couldn't figure it out after I said sock, I would have their chart out for them to be able to look at. And then I'd ask them to write it a couple of times to help store that in long-term memory. So that's chart tapping and sound dictation. And those are the first 2 pieces of every brain-friendly reading lesson. Teachers use those whole group, they use them small group. The next part that we're going to focus on is game playing. And the game playing is really a core piece of the brain-friendly reading program. In fact, oftentimes we say we tap the charts, we do some sound dictation, maybe review, we teach a new lesson, and then we engage in word study. And that is the teacher language for saying, how are we going to learn about this body of words? And a lot of what we do is centered around playing a game. Why? Well, we know that many struggling readers require, in fact, all struggling readers require repetition, repetition, repetition. How are you going to get children to repeat the work enough that they store those letter sound sequences? So think of a word as a letter sequence that's connected to a sound sequence. That has to get stored in long-term memory so that when they see that word again, they recall it quickly and accurately. Some children need as many as 200 exposures to a word in order to store it in long-term memory. So games provide a way for children to be able to get that amount of repetition in a way that's low stress and low anxiety, because we know when children are in a state of play, their ability to store things in long-term memory goes up. Game playing is also multisensory, which the more senses we utilize, the more quickly it stores in long-term memory. And that high engagement means that the children are willing to come to the table. They're willing to sit down and play that Go Fish game after you finish dinner. And we know that all of that game playing helps to build and strengthen the neural pathways in the brain between the parts of the brain that have to talk to each other for reading and spelling to happen. And one of the sneaky pieces of game playing is that in a classroom or home or while you're tutoring, is that while you're playing the game, you're able to observe the children and see who is doing it easily without much effort and accurately, who is struggling and might need additional support. And above all, well, not really above all, but a nice bonus of the game playing is that they are low prep and they're also low cost. Almost everything we do, you can do with just pencil and paper. In fact, I haven't prepped the games that I'm going to show you tonight because I want you to see that I've printed them out, but that I can prep them in just a few minutes. So there's 3 different games that I'm going to show you. 2 I'm going to demo and 1 I'm going to talk about. But the games to play with letters and sounds can be used with any chart, so you can remember that. One game is a board game where we've taken the chart squares and cut them apart and made a track. Here you can see it on a file folder. That's a nice size. You can use any of the squares from the chart, and you don't have to use all the squares from the chart, and you can duplicate squares on the chart. We're also going to talk about two-column matching and face-up memory. Here's a couple of examples of a game board. I love the one on the left that someone made. They cut out ladders and slides so that it's like a shoots and ladders game, like a homemade shoots and ladders game. And you see that on the cards, they just have numbers on them. If you can use a dice, but you just get done with the game more quickly, you skip a lot more of the squares, and the goal is to tap. So if you have a child who likes to play the game many times, have a dice. But for a child who's like, I'm going to play one time, then maybe all of your numbers are 1 and 2, or maybe 1, 2, and 3 on cards, and you draw a card and it has a 1, 2, or 3 on it. And you move that number of spaces, you hop that many squares, and then you tap your square. So it's like tapping the chart, but it takes longer. But for a lot of parents who are playing games with children, particularly young children, it doesn't matter how long it takes, because you might need something constructive to do that's not screen time. It's also something that children can do together while they're working in a center. You can see that there was another chart made that was less fancy, and it has a start and it has an end piece, and it's using the squares from the blends chart. So these are great to make and be able to share with parents when you're tutoring as well, and show them how to make these. I'm going to show you how to do the two-column matching activity where we match letters to sounds. And I'm going to show you how to play face-up memory. These are two games that are part of the Brain Friendly Reading program. We use two-column matching for a wide variety of skills. And the face-up memory game is easier than traditional memory. If you've never heard of face-up memory, it's something we've pioneered with young children and with children that have very low working memory, or are ones who have some other challenge, neurological challenge, or children who benefit when they get a new skill at having a way to be able to practice that skill that they can be very successful with. This is a game that children can also play by themselves, so they don't have to have a partner. And all of the games that we have are ones that, once you learn how to play them, you can begin to make game selections really strategically, and in a way that allows you to be able to scaffold the skill level, which means think about that if you're not a teacher, in terms of like, how much difficulty do I want there to be in the game, and choose the games according to that. On the Brain Friendly Reading website, there are we call it large picture cards, the pictures from the chart and the corresponding letters that go with them. These become like game pieces. They have the same size and shape as the Go Fish games. And I inadvertently printed out the entire set. So there's ones for the second chart and the syllables chart and the vowel teams chart and the blends chart. So there's large picture cards for all of the charts. So here's the first chart. And if I had a group of kiddos coming to the table to sit down and do a lesson with me, I might be chatting with them and letting them share something that was their favorite thing that they did over the weekend, and letting them have 60 seconds to talk to one another and talk to me. Maybe they want to share something that happened on the playground. Doesn't matter. I don't even have to trim these. So if you're a teacher who really likes things very neat, this is an opportunity for you to practice letting go. That's it. That's the prep. So I printed it. That was my prep. I did it while the children were coming to the table and while I was setting up with them. Now I'm going to show you two activities to play with the same card deck. And I'm going to limit how many selections I have. And if I had more than one group of children, I could hand one set to maybe two children who are going to work together, or they could work individually. And I have another stack of cards for the other children. And I even have a third stack of cards, which is these 2 pages, for another set of children. And then when they finish, they can pass their cards to the left and each take a turn with each set. This is 2-column matching. So we have our pictures and we have our letters, And we have our chart available for the children to be able to reference, because we're only doing this work for children who need to practice the letter sound correspondences. And here we're practicing the letter sound with the beginning sound of the picture. So what does that remind you of? The initial consonant sort activity where we focused on the initial sound in the word yesterday. This is very similar and a way to practice that. So we're going to have the chart out. You're not going to see it, but the chart is out. And what the child is going to do is look at their letter, and if they need to go back to their chart, if they look at their pictures, a hat, whoops, can't see. So they're going to look at their letter, and then they're going to examine their pictures, a hat, a bat, robot. Yes, that matches, doesn't it? So then they're going to set that off to the side. And then we have I can look at my chart and go back and find it. Goat, G. And I find my goat, goat, G. And set that off to the side. And I have 3 more to match. And the child might prefer to take the picture, and let's pretend like they're not in order, but even if they were, take the picture and put it next to it and say H, bat, B, hat, H, hat. It doesn't really matter how they do it. You can be very conscientious in the strategy that you teach the children, which is helpful for very young children, like 4-year-olds. Older children will begin to just find matches and say tiger, tiger, and they find the t and match it up, and they put their bat together. Then once they have their entire set, you can ask them to tap their squares. So they can go B, bat, B, T, tiger, T, H, hat, G, goat, G, R, robot, And that may be something you choose to do, or this matching activity might have been the point of exhaustion for that child. And that was enough work. And that is a review that you're using as a 60-second or 2-minute review for letter sound combinations that the child is struggling with. So you can use this for targeted instruction around specific squares on their chart that you know that child needs extra repetition with. And the other thing I wanted to show you about 2-column matching is that some children really benefit from having something that really identifies for them what a column is. So if you work, if you work with a population that would really benefit from, this is column A and this is column B, and they need to have a few matches in very prescribed columns in order to do this work, don't hesitate to modify what you're doing to meet the educational needs of the student that you're working with. All right, face-up memory. You could use that exact same deck of cards for face-up memory. You can choose to do face-up memory with a set of 6. You could choose to do face-up memory with a set of 8 or 10. The more cards you have, the more challenging it is to do, right? Now, in traditional memory, you turn over 2 cards and then you see if you have a match. Oh, pizza. Oh, pizza. Those don't match, do they? In traditional memory, you turn those back over. We call that face down memory. Now, that requires that the child is able to recall that this is the position of the ol and this is the position of the pizza. For children that have low working memory, they've already forgotten where those are. And it's just a complete guessing game, and it can be very frustrating, particularly if they're playing with another child who has a stronger working memory. So here's how you make it easier for the child so they can be more successful, still work on the skills, and level the playing field between students. The first child can turn over 1 or 2 cards. Often we let the first child turn over 2 cards. N and k. Well, that's not a match, is it? We're trying to find matches from our chart. We can have our chart out to remind us as well. So now that was player 1. Now player 2 is going to turn over 1 card. Here's player 2. Pizza. Pizza. And if the child forgets what letter goes with pizza, they can come back and find their pizza and remember that remember, if this is super easy for a child, this may not be an effective use of their time. That we want the appropriate child to be working on this is one who's still working on those letter sound combinations, who's tapping their chart but also may need 2 or 3 or 4 repetitions during the day. Okay, the next player turned over that card. Now it's the next player's turn, and they can go through and say, pizza. Here we have a net, net. And sometimes children will turn over the card and not recall that this is the letter that goes with this sound. If you're working with a child like that, you can simply take the chart that's off to the side and just point to it without saying anything. Just point to it. You might even move the card down with the child if you're tutoring, but let them make the discovery that these 2 things match without verbally prodding them so that they can be thinking about the sound. You can also be saying net. Ooh, that's net. And they go, oh, yes. Does that match what's on our chart? And they can go and reference the chart. Do you see how this becomes a control of error for them? A way for them to use that as a reference point to be independent. Now the next child goes, but honestly, if one child is playing, and I've had many children play by themselves, they simply turn over the next card and see if they can find a match. And they turned over a at. And if you're the teacher, you're isolating that initial consonant for them, at. If they've done a lot of arm spelling, you can do at. Ooh, what do I hear at the beginning? And they can match their 2 letters, and the next child takes a turn and turns over a card. If they don't see the match, you go back to the chart. You can say, oh, let's find the lion. And the child finds the lion. Let's look. And you can go through it with them. Lion, iron. And you do the articulating with the child who's struggling. You're modeling and providing the sounds. That's the key piece of this, that you keep articulating the sounds, keep modeling, isolating the initial consonant. That is the piece that helps the child. So when they're done and they've made all their matches, you can come in and have them tap their 4 squares. You can mix it up again and play a different way. You could do a 2-column matching activity with this, and some children will make up other games for them to play. If it was easy to do it with 4, you can add more matches into it. And some children love to have a bigger board to use for their for their game. One other thing I wanted to show you was the low prep way to make a chart board game. That this is an old kindergarten chart before we added extra skills to it. But right before we started the training tonight, I drew the arrows. I put a little go at the beginning and an end here at the end. And this is now instead of the fancy cut up game board, this is a game board. And if you have a collection of objects like I do, then you can choose 2 objects for the children to make go around the board. So how about a dice? And we can use a lock. And I could quickly take some paper and cut them and make cards that have 1, 2, or 3, and the children draw 1, 2, or 3 and hop. 1, 2, H, hat, and the next child goes and draws a 3 and goes 1, 2, 3, M, map, and they continue to draw cards and go around their game board until they're done. Easy peasy, low prep. You could even take this if you didn't have the large chart squares, if you didn't have these printed, you could take a pair of scissors, don't gasp. You could take a pair of scissors and cut these apart when the child is done. And this takes a minute more prep than what we did earlier, but you cut these apart, take out your index cards and a glue stick. And with your half size index cards that you already have pre-cut, you can make matching cards by just gluing the picture onto a card and taking one of the letters and gluing it onto a low prep, low cost. It doesn't have to be index cards. They're kind of pricey-ish when you're purchasing them off season. It could just be any kind of cardstock or paper or construction paper. And now you've created the same thing that are these guys, if you don't have them handy. Okay. All right. So those are some options for you for how to use the materials in ways that are easy. And I hope your bells and whistles are going off in your mind about different ways that you could work with those materials. So I'm just going to finish up this slide presentation really quickly, and then we'll take a couple of questions. Like I said, in terms of our lesson sequence, today we tapped the chart, we did some sound dictation, and we used a lot of different activities for how to build those letter sound connections. You've gotten a couple of free charts in your download. If you want all the charts, you can go to brainfriendlyreading.com, and there's a sound chart bundle that includes all the charts with pictures, without pictures, the progress monitoring chart that's in the beginning, along with directions for $6. There are also files where there are like flashcard size charts and full squares. So like it would just have a short A on an entire page. The kindergarten materials are off to the right here, or one piece where the kindergarten chart has each strip has letters and the pictures that go with it, and Go Fish games as well. And if you love all of these game ideas, you can go watch the Tools in 10 presentation that Erin has done. She does a 10-minute bite-sized PD every Monday night on our group coaching calls, which are all welcome to attend. Those are free and open to the public. This one is on the We Shall Read YouTube channel. And it's her going through these games plus a few more on how to reinforce letter sound connections with gameplay. So if you want to watch this, but in an 8-minute format to get a reminder about how to play those games, go watch this video on the We Shall Read YouTube channel. You can find more games and lesson pages and books and even tutors at brainfriendlyreading.org and weshallread.org. And both YouTube channels have instructional videos. And if you're a new tutor, you can go find the Tips for Tutor series. Those are really compact, bite-sized videos on how to start and establish a tutoring business so you can be like Kelly Gartner and be a full-time tutor who's able to support yourself. And remember that We Shall Read provides grant-funded brain-friendly reading training through its Mentor Me course. You can sign up asynchronously for $225. Normally those courses are like, some places around here in Michigan, they're close to $3,000, but we have grant funding to allow us to offer it at that price point. Those also include individualized mentoring, the Monday night group coaching calls, as well as the digital copy of the training companion guide, which is about 300 pages and has every single lesson in the program in addition to the games. And if you're in person, we have in-person trainings here in Southeast Michigan in the fall. We have a summer intensive that's already full with people actually flying in from out of state for. And we also provide professional development for schools and nonprofit organizations. We currently are providing extensive professional development in Dearborn. So that is a little bit about what it is that we are up to as an organization. Of course, We Shall Read is a 501c3 nonprofit. that's why we can do what we can do. And we certainly appreciate individual donations. So if you find value in the work that we're doing with you through this series, please don't hesitate to jump on the website and leave a small donation. Every donation helps us to attract larger donations, because the larger grant funders want to see that individuals find value in the work that we do. So they know that when they give grants, that we use them in a way that actually impacts children.
That's great. There are some teachers sharing in the chat that they've taken the training and they're using the materials in their classrooms. Kindergarten teachers have chimed in. One of them said that once the kids know the chart, that they do variations like they sing the chart and they whisper the chart and they go really fast and they go really slow. And I tell you, young kids could do those charts all day long. They love it because it's rhythmical and it's fun. And then a third grade teacher shared that she's seen great results. So I think it's great that the program works for very young new readers and older readers, whether or not they're struggling. It works for readers of all kinds.
And with those older kiddos, often the upper elementary teachers are like, most of my children are reading okay. And then I ask them about spelling and they're like, oh, spelling. Because most spelling programs are just memorize a list of randomized words. And once children have all those sound symbol connections that are on all those charts, Kelly, I know you know that when they go to spell multisyllabic words like personification, they're like, oh, I know what says per. Oh, is it PR or PER? Well, it can't be PR because there's no vowel and every syllable has a vowel. It must be PER. So the children began to become word scientists, and they really enjoy being able to crack that code and know all the pieces of our language and how they're spelled and why they're spelled and which words are influenced by the French and the different sounds that S can make in words, and they will discover that.
Somebody who's interested in signing up for the asynchronous training, and when they sign up, how long do they have to complete it?
So it's great because we're a grant funded nonprofit. It's great for you to move through the course as quickly as you can. So sign up when you know you can commit time to completing the course would be my suggestion.
And that's what I did. I wasn't teaching and I was really eager to start. And the thing that I found is after the first couple of sessions and watching the asynchronous training, I was able to just jump right in and start using things like the chart tapping and the games we talked about last night, the secret decoder game, the I Spy. I could use those immediately with my students. So I got the value out of it, within like 2 weeks.
Well, that's awesome. I know. And you completed the whole course, I think, inside of a month because you were highly motivated to start tutoring and generating funds. And because you had a background as a teacher, even though it was an upper elementary teacher, you were able to be really successful. And Kelly, did you find that over time you just expanded your skill set and how to use the materials?
Oh, absolutely. So when I started, I was thinking second or third graders, like those are my sweet spot. And then I've started getting first graders and kindergartners and really working with the kids that are beginning readers. And that was definitely something that I had not done when I was in the classroom as a second and third grade teacher. And right now I'm working with a fifth grader who reads on grade level, according to his school, but his spelling is 2 levels behind. So he's my first child that I've worked with in the upper elementary. So because I've done this work and I've had so many different students, I've learned a lot over the last couple of years, and I feel like I'm able to offer more to a wider range of kids.
Right. And, even if you felt stuck, because I haven't talked to you about this, but if you ever feel stuck, you can always come to a Monday night group coaching call.
I could do that. And the only problem is I'm in Houston and I'm an hour behind and I'm always tutoring, but they're so great. And I do find myself going back and watching those Tools in 10 videos that Erin has that we have on the We Shall Read. I taught almost every lesson more than one time, and I still go back and watch those videos for pointers and tips and refreshers, because I can always learn something new.
Right, right. I think, I've been doing this work for quite a long time and I still learn new things. I mean, teachers in classrooms are piloting new games like Julie Marsh, who's on here tonight. She's a third grade teacher in South Redford, and she took the phrases and sentences and two red solo cups and put half in one and half in the other and made a game board that had two, a triangle and a square, and the children picked from a cup and moved around the board. There's a video about it in the Tools in 10 on the We Shall Read YouTube channel. But that's very simple game that she invented out of necessity to just have a little bit of variety for kids who need a lot of repetition.
They will read those sentences over and over and over again, and they don't realize that they're reading. So for kids who are reluctant, and they don't have a lot of confidence, they're just, I just pick one of these and I get to move spaces and I get to read this sentence. And it's because it's a game, it's fun and it's motivating, and they will readily agree to do it.
Yeah, once they realize that nobody's going to put them on the spot and they can just lean into the game side of it and kind of forget that they're working on a skill that's challenging for them. And the wonderful part about the games too is that, particularly in a classroom environment, that typically there's a child with more skill working with a child with less skill, and the child with more skill becomes like a peer teacher with the other child. Julie could probably speak to that more about what she's seen in her classroom, but I've certainly observed that when I've been doing in class coaching, watching children lend a hand to their friends, and that helps with all the kinds of relationship building and grace and courtesy that we would love to see from the children in the classroom. So
another thing I'll mention, and for people who are classroom teachers or tutors, especially because you're funding it out of your own pocket. Everything that we have, like you said, is so low cost that it is really easy to implement, and you really don't have to go out and buy a lot of materials like you do for other programs. So I just want to give a plug for that, because that's one of the ingenious things about this program, is how easy it is to implement with very, very low cost materials.
I mean, we have a printed version of the training companion guide that has every lesson with games and sentences and phrases, and everything that you absolutely need is right here. You don't have to buy any of the ancillary materials that have been made. And this comes with the training program digitally so that you can just print exactly what you need when you need it. And of course, there is a printed version available as well if you prefer having a printed spiral bound. But I have people who print it and take it to the printer and bind it themselves, or punch 3 holes in it and put it in a binder. Whatever works for you works for us. So we just want to give you the skills you need so that you can help the children in your lives. I hope to see you again tomorrow night. Kelly Rummel will be leading the training, and the next couple of nights, she's going to focus on different skills, how to use arm spelling, that arm tapping that we've been talking about previously, and how to help children with their writing and with their spelling, and with additional games and doing repeated word reading. So she's extending the learning into what is more traditional part and a core part of the Brain Friendly Reading Program. The last couple of nights are ones that really focus on those beginning skills that children must have for young readers, or the ones that we've talked about. Tomorrow night, we step into the meat that you would use when you're working with first graders and kindergartners too, and up.